Welcome back to the Bitcoin Reformation podcast. This week, again, two of us, usually three of us pastors who love Jesus, and yes, Bitcoin too. We've checked in on Ben. He's got lots of things going on in his life. So we'll just say it this way. If you're a praying person, we'd ask that you would intercede for him on his behalf as a baptized child of God, that he might have the strength and faith he needs, as we know God will give him. But nevertheless, we miss him, and we're hoping that he can be back someday here. It is, at least when we're recording this, the days after Easter. And so, I mean, I don't know about you, David, but Easter Sunday is by far my favorite Sunday of the year. I think people might think I'm crazy, but like I'm jumping around, screaming and yelling, and it's Jesus is alive. Like if you can't bring your hype and energy for Jesus being back from the literal dead, like go drink some more coffee or something. I don't know. So I just love it. And it's the most hope-filled Sunday of the year too, I think. Even with all the excitement, the message itself is worthy of hope for all people too. So it's been a crazy lead up to that with midweek Wednesday services, and then we do a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday Easter vigil, and then 3 Sunday services too. So, you know, just
Oh my goodness.
a big chunk of worship. But it's one of those too, like where you get to see all the people that make that journey with you, and that makes it even more special, that it's not just myself up there doing the stuff, but there's actually, hey, you know, I know you have come here on Thursday and on Friday, and you came on Saturday, and now you're here on Sunday, and we've walked this road together. It really kind of creates that sense of family and community that I think, you know, we all desire, we all need, we all long for. So in our house these days, I don't know where I shared last, Judah had his endoscopy. It appears he had stomach ulcers. We don't know how or why. So it's a myth. You get those from being stressed, is what I learned, because I ignorantly told my wife he must have been really stressed. And she said, no, that's not how that works, Jared. And so the only thing we can really think of is he had an infection a while ago, and it all kind of started around then. Maybe perhaps he almost went septic with his infection, and supposedly having sepsis can cause stomach ulcers. So maybe, we don't know, but the doctor doesn't want to change anything. So we're really, really grateful. In many ways, it is the best outcome. It wasn't nothing, because then that would be concerning. We don't know what the answer is, but it's not other worse things. And so we're grateful, very grateful for that too. One story, and then I'll toss it over to you. Our Easter egg hunt here at our church was Saturday. A couple elderly people throw it out for our school kids, and we had about 80 kids there, which was great, from our 300 preschool through 5th grade kids that were there. So that's a really great chunk of kids. And we really thought, you know, it won't start right at 10. And so we kind of took our time, and we left our house at 9:58. And we're really close, like right on our subdivision, right on the edge of the property of the church and school. And so we were walking, and all of a sudden, at 10 o'clock, we heard this uproar of sound. And Emily and I just kind of looked at each other. And then a few seconds later, we heard someone yelling, "Pick it up, pick it up." And sure enough, as we walked down the field, it's right on the edge of the sidewalk. So as we're walking on the sidewalk with our kids in the strollers, you're just watching all of the eggs in the field disappear, because the egg hunt has already started and it's already ending. And so Zoe is crying in the stroller. Silas is saying, "Oh no, oh no." And so we won the Parents of the Year award for being late to the egg hunt and ruining our children's only egg hunt, at least at church. But
No.
we had a great time anyway. And at the end of the night that day, we sat around afterwards with some of our friends here, and Silas got to spend some time with some of his favorite people from church. And Emily was telling him, "Hey, you know, wasn't it great that you got to see, you know, so-and-so today?" And in her words, she said, "Yeah," without skipping a beat, he just said, "Yeah, I got a lot of family." And that just I was crying on Saturday night when I read that text message. Because as you know, people with family far away, David, you get that too. And you sort of have to create and make your family there. And so for your 2, almost 3-year-old son to just call these people that are most certainly not biological family for a kid who doesn't understand that is beautiful and wonderful. And, you know, in many ways, it's the family of faith at its finest, being truly family with each other. So that was a really heartwarming thing to hear after we failed at getting him to the egg hunt on time. So that's what's going on over here in my neck of the woods. How are things in sunny California?
Yeah, it is sunny today. It's been cooler these last 2 weeks after several warm weeks, but still, it's great. Yeah, we're blessed. It was a great Easter at church. We had several bigger families gone for good reasons. We knew they'd be gone, and so we were wondering who would show up. So this is a church that averages maybe 30, 35 on a Sunday. We're hoping that, right, by the way, represents like 2x to 3x from where we were just 3 years ago, but we're hoping for more
Wow.
growth. We're praying for our pastor. We're starting to strategize how that could happen. But with two families gone, you're like, who will show up? But we
Right.
had
Who's going to
probably
be there?
55 people at worship, half of them guests from out of state, from in town. So we loved it. It really was great. Church was renovated this last year, which was tremendous. My family, we're blessed. We're good. Son number two was not with us. He was at school in Phoenix, couldn't make it home. So we were definitely missing him. And in fact, it's by the time we pick him up here in a few weeks from the end of this semester, it'll have been 4 months since my wife saw him, and that's got her really. It's the longest she's
Wow.
gone without seeing any of her children.
That's
So
crazy. That's a long
that's
time.
it is a long time. We want to not maybe repeat that next year. Um, yeah, it seems everybody from church was accounted for. There have been some early holidays in our time here where we did have some invites and we said, hey, we just need to be by ourselves this one. And now we're at the other end of that. I don't know, when you're kind of settling, like we need to be here, we need to, now, yeah, we have some lonely holidays here. We have each other, so we're not truly lonely, but as a family, you can feel lonely for sure. And this was definitely one of them. Now where does that sting us? That stings us in the days leading up to it. It stings us in, the day preparing for a meal, but we had a great meal together. Good news, in a way, we invited no less than 15 people to join us. Like, we invited pretty aggressively, thinking some other people might be in the same state, and they weren't. So praise God for that. They had somebody they were eating with. We're talking singles, widowers, this type of
Sure.
thing. But yes, and then we have the meal, and we're blessed. We're great. We FaceTimed my mom. I mean, what amazing technology that is. You can set up the iPhone up by the TV. It acts as this like it catches everything. We're casting it to the TV. It's just amazing. So good technology. Good visit there. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, last year on Easter afternoon, I did a 9.5 mile run down from Onyx Summit, not far from here. Did it with Scott Keith and his daughter-in-law, Erica Keith. And this year, Scott was in Finland. Erica was down the hill 2 hours away. She had just given birth to child number five 2 days prior. But I definitely texted them both on Easter afternoon and said, last year was our first annual resurrection run. And this year, wow, the lengths the both of you went to get out of it. Just the lengths. A flight to Finland and child number five.
Having a baby.
Yeah, but I did with the dog, went out and did 7.5 miles of
Good for you.
hiking and some modified trail running down, which was great, which was great. Just beautiful day here. You need to come up, Jared, sometime so that I can take you up in the mountains and try to follow you. But
Well,
won't be
I'll
able to,
follow
but
you. Trail running is
someday.
such a different beast than like road running. I mean, I've done a little bit of that. My brother was into trail running when he was in the Upper Peninsula. And so I ran with, I don't know if it was there or somewhere else, but it was like so different because road running, you can really like just zone out and like kind
I
of
mean,
go. But like with trail running, I mean, you really kind of got to watch what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to fall on your face.
okay. So then we'll get into our topic then. I can't handle the road because if I could see more than a block down, I just despair of how much pavement and concrete is ahead of me. But back up to the trail, like you're saying, it is that it's only that what you described that constantly I need to be making a choice with my footfalls and what I'm doing next. That's the only thing that can even get me close to remembering in that moment I'm not running. Otherwise, I'm just like, I'm running and I hate running. I can hike all day long, all day long. I can just keep going. But running, I think I had a trail run last year when I was doing a bit more of it, where I got off the trail and again texted or called Scott and said, I almost enjoyed running today. I almost enjoyed it. It was really close. It was really close.
That'll be a sign that you've made it when you get done
I
and you
guess.
say, I love it. This thing is great. Let me do it again.
I guess.
So today we're going to try and talk about something which I think you and I need to touch base about in a couple of weeks here, the Bitcoin conference. Now, there's many Bitcoin conferences now, but this is the one that's put on, I think, by BTC Inc. or was Bitcoin Magazine, something like that. So it started with the Bitcoin Magazine, I think, and is, at least in my understanding, the largest of the Bitcoin conferences around the world. And for the last couple of years has been held in Las Vegas. And I know we've done a post Bitcoin conference episode last year after I went to the conference in Vegas. And we're going to do, maybe we think of hey, what do we want to see, or what are the things we're looking forward to seeing, or called just a pre-Bitcoin conference episode, because like last year, there was themes that came through, and maybe this year we'll see what we anticipate to hear, what we anticipate to see, if we're able to go to that, see them, or at least listen to them online, because they're all sort of broadcast that way too. So I think I want to start with maybe for some people, the curious thing about the Bitcoin price. And so I told you this before we started here, that last year, when the conference was, and it was a little later, so it was at the end of May last year, not where it is now at the end of April. But last May, the price was around $109,000. And so I still remember how, I don't know if euphoric is the right word, but everyone was very excited. Everyone was very, ooh, to the moon sort of thing, like it's going to keep going up forever, and this is just the start. And that creates a very different vibe, or a very different feel than where we are today, somewhere around $68,000, which I'm looking at my notes here. You see me looking over. So in 2024, when the conference was in Nashville, Tennessee, the price was about the same at 64. So there you go. If you bought Bitcoin 2 years ago on that day of the conference, which would have been in July, you would have, got a small amount of gains. And so it's always curious to see kind of where things are and how that kind of affects the mood, because in some ways, when price is going up, everybody's really excited about it. Everybody wants to talk about it. The energy is kind of the positive vibes type deal. And so I think the first thing I would say about this year's conference is I'm curious if the sentiment and the feel around that are related to price will overcome or be the predominant force based off of the differences in what maybe I might see in, call it, the adoption of Bitcoin in the last year that has happened or so. So I don't know what you think, but I'm guessing that people won't be as much talking about where things are in that way, because there's not a lot to write home about just yet. What do you think?
Yeah, I heard that again the other day. This idea that the largest PR campaign for Bitcoin is always price go up, right? Of course, as an investor, or well, we've shied away from that investment language. I've tried to, and yet here I just stumbled into it again. But we'll start with that. When people are looking to invest, you actually want to invest in a place where you have conviction as to why the value of that will go up over time, and you preferably want to be in earlier and not just at the frothy tops. So the frothy tops are what bring the masses the questions, the Google searches, the texts and phone calls from friends, the excitement to a conference. I think though, yeah, maybe you said that. I think so. The world's largest Bitcoin conference yearly is here, um, coming up. But you want the tease of higher prices as well, which is what really you had last year. 108, I guess it had broken all-time high, or was it waiting to match it at that point? It's trying to get up there
Brutal.
again. Yeah, but it's still good. Anything north of 100,000 feels like, whoa, Wow, it's a psychological barrier. Part of the narrative as to why we're under 100,000 in this last year is once it hit that amount, a lot of the original holders said that's my psychological level that I chose where I'm going to rotate out. I'm now going to pay off debt, afford the things in life that I've always wanted to, this type of thing. So no, yeah, absolutely. That'll be interesting. I have heard it said before though, Jared, that it is the conferences in the bear markets where you actually get higher signal. Because it's not just like Bitcoin bros, high fiving, chest thumping all the
Right.
time. You're actually having to do what we have said repeatedly on the show. What is the core thesis here? And so without happy prices, you're going to head back to core thesis and hopefully test core thesis. Here's what's also true, and I think it sets us up well for more of this conversation. Is I've been told, I've never been to a Bitcoin conference, but I've been told that it's in the bear markets where you see more innovation, people building forward for what's ahead, as opposed to the price kind of either catching up to innovation or the excitement over price eclipsing actual innovation. That it's in the bear market where people are truly building, and that to me is exciting. I've said that about the Bitcoin kind of ecosystem or culture, if there is one. There is not no single one, but nevertheless, on the whole, I would say this: it's always been a very hopeful. I've most frequently run into very hopeful conversations, hopeful people, a hopeful kind of culture and ecosystem. And here's what I mean by hopeful in this way. They're actually building. They're not just critiquing. It's easy to throw rocks at an aging system. And a lot of people do that. They throw rocks at some of the outcomes of inflation, higher prices, all kinds of things, even if they don't know how to trace it back to what the core issue is. But they throw rocks, but they don't have any constructive tools in their hands to build an alternative. And the Bitcoin crew, I think, sees an alternative world and builds towards it a piece at a time. So I would be hopeful for the innovation maybe that you begin to hear about there.
Absolutely. I think the phrase is bear markets are for building, right? Is what you're referencing. And in many ways, that's at least what I think I hear people, but I don't know about you. I don't feel like I've really seen or heard of a lot of like what that is in like previous cycles where I feel like it's a very obvious, here's the thing we're building, here's the thing we're preparing for, like here's the thing we're leading up to. Has there been anything like you've been interested in or you've been following along with project wise?
Uh, I see a shift. I feel like the earlier markets, the builders were things like wallets, hot wallets, cold wallets. And there still are those builders. You're hearing less about that. Maybe because some of those have arrived and they'll be a bit plug and play in the future. And at the same time, Bitcoin is now coming natively to banks in the United States, right? And so
Hmm.
again, it'll be baked into the ecosystem where you already are. And so there might be less sort of native, at least felt need to have your own wallet solutions. So the very fact that that conversation is becoming quieter, I believe, is evidence of what already has been accomplished and some of these changes that are still being made. Um, some of it also just has to do with FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. A lot of times there is innovation in the place where the fear and uncertainty doubt is. In this last market, it seems that you know a variety of things. Retail didn't sort of show up. Corporate did show up. So the masses haven't been there. Corporate has really been building from the ETFs to the preferred stock and the other stocks, for instance, offered by Strategy, Strive, Metaplanet, where these are truly these are companies that are piggybacking on the growth of Bitcoin in, I think, meaningful ways. They can be critiqued, but that's not what this conversation is. So there's been a lot there. But absent, what's been absent now this last cycle? Absent has been the extreme levels of fear, and not just fear, but accusation against Bitcoin on, for instance, energy fronts.
Hmm.
You're gonna pollute the whole world. You're gonna use more energy than this and that.
Boil the ocean.
Boil the ocean. Strangely, though, if I have a free ticket. I think we both have free tickets to this conference coming up. I don't even know that I can make it yet. I haven't even like looked at life kind of post Easter here, so I'll need to look at that. I will be making it sometime, if not this time. But I would be very interested in hearing any kind of breakouts and the like on energy use, because energy has to do with human flourishing. Energy has everything to do with this war we have with Iran right now, and literally how things could go even worse from here. It's just not good. The second we find a bottleneck or a stoppage in our energy supply lines, so is the second costs of all kinds of things go up and up and up. The world falls apart. Or put differently, I had I heard once, and then I tested out on my kids, my older ones at least. In the last 200 years, industrial revolution forward, what's been the single greatest achievement of the industrial revolution till now? And what happened to me, it happens with the kids as I tried it out on them. We look for a single technology and we kind of miss the big technology, the base layer technology behind it all, which is here was the what was being contended for as the answer, and I kind of hold on to it. I think I can't find a better one yet. Is the single biggest achievement of the industrial revolution and beyond till now. A lot of positive benefits, sure, negative benefits as well, and yet it's almost incontrovertible that it's accorded with human flourishing. Is our ability to harness energy, right? To harness energy. And we've got energy bottlenecks all around us. Each of these alternative energies that sources that have been proposed have pluses and minuses. But with a lot of them, there's this mismatch between energy production and energy need, or the energy production that's being offered is best when it produces that sort of energy 24/7. It doesn't ramp up or down well. Um, yeah, anyways, for a variety of different energy sources, production types, or even escaped energy that we have right now happens all over the world. It's been suggested as much as 33% of the energy produced worldwide goes to no good end. It literally is dissipated one place or another. It's lost. So talk about a non-green thing, that would be one. But in all of those areas, I find so thrilling the ability of Bitcoin to kind of flow in like water looking for a low spot. It flows, it finds a spot, it finds a niche, and how to satisfy that. And I find that absolutely amazing. It's amazing for the security of the Bitcoin network. It's amazing for continually the network getting larger than it is today, which would be a positive thing. That'd be a whole other episode. It's actually good, though, simply for human flourishing. If it leads to more stable grids, or if it leads to grids where the economics truly are good and don't have to be subsidized, because even when there's a mismatch of need and production, you've got this whole side industry that's willing to subsidize it from the free market, not from the government. Subsidize it, step in, use it up. So I find that that's one thing I've not heard much of in past years, Jared, that I would be ready to go to that conference or those breakouts on energy and Bitcoin.
And I wonder if the reason you haven't heard a lot of that is the pivot or the transformation, what the right word is, of some of these Bitcoin miners into AI data
Yep.
center stuff. So like I know Hut 8 is doing some of that. I think Mara Marathon has did a sort of shift over, and you've seen this reflected in some of the difficulty levels, right? So a basic refresher, right? The Bitcoin difficulty level adjusts based on how many blocks are produced, and every 2 weeks or so, the difficulty is adjusted to go up or down and try and keep the blocks coming at a steady pace of 10 minutes. And the difficulty has gone down a couple. I haven't looked lately, but at least the stories that I feel like I was seeing were, hey, people are pivoting out of Bitcoin mining into AI because it's a more constant, more steady, less. You're not tied to the price of Bitcoin for your revenue like you wouldn't be if you were in AI sort of data center running chip stuff like that. But I feel like I have for sure, semi-related to yours, heard about people saying, hey, AI is going to boil the oceans, right? It's it's going to suck our life. It's going to take our jobs. It's that same sort of fear. And so it's very intriguing. I remember Nick Carter, I think, saying something like, just wait until the people who care about this energy stuff come for AI and see what happens, because they're going to pivot away from Bitcoin to these AI data centers. And I mean, I even think I saw somewhere that someone was making laws about this too, like how much power you could consume for some of these. There was an article that was circulating about some person in Kentucky who like turned down millions of dollars, I believe, because they didn't want an AI data center built on their land, stuff like this. Like to me, it seems like a narrative that's out there in the world. And so it sort of leads to what I am curious, or how many talks will be about this, how many people will be there to talk about the connection between Bitcoin and AI. Because last year it wasn't, I mean, ChatGPT was here last year, like that was still a thing, but just the amount of leaps and gains that AI is able to do and accomplish. I mean, you think about the agent side of stuff, the sort of, hey, it's just going to go and I give it access to part of my computer and it will do all of these things for me, and I can communicate with it. I'm very curious to see what and or how much of the conference is like basically, hey, Bitcoin is the best AI currency use, and so this is why, or hey, we're building this thing, Bitcoin AI. I don't know. I'm very curious what is around Bitcoin and AI. Do you have any ideas or any thoughts about
Well,
that?
just to frame it a little bit more for our hearers, if they're not as versant at it as we are, and we're just novices ourselves, or at least I am. But here's the idea. We've got this new technology, the AIs. We've been hearing about them for 3-4 years, but now you're talking about this next shift into AIs that work as like a personal agent or assistant for you, where you can set them up with recurring tasks and they can just be carrying on in the background. It's not just a prompt action, but literally workflows and tasks, just a variety of things. I've been toying around with one with my own workflow. Haven't had much success yet, but I've been toying with it suddenly. But whoever it is, whether it's Claude, Grok, Gemini, ChatGPT, the others, what does seem clear is there's huge initial money funding these things. They are highly electricity and data center dependent. And right now, the model seems to be, what market share can we get? How can we get out in front? But in no case yet, I don't think, are any of them truly profitable. Some of them are capturing some profits probably to offset spend, but they're not truly profitable. And that the future will look something like this. And it's already happening, that you have so many tokens in a system, or you pay per task. But that system also maybe acts like the toll lanes here in Southern California, where there's flex fees depending on things like congestion, right? So if I have an AI agent doing things for me, I need them done daily, but I don't need them done at 2 p.m. I could set mine up in the future to do it at 2 a.m. because ostensibly there's less traffic, at least stateside, maybe globally it all evens out, but there's less traffic, and therefore it would be cheaper for me to do that. So now we're talking about prices flexing up and down, and we're talking about the need for micropayments. That's where I'm going with this. And it turns out the US dollar is not very good for micropayments. You can have a model where somebody sort of has to purchase so many credits ahead of time, and then you slowly use them. There's issues with that. But what's more exciting to this digital world is the ability to make truly micropayments, final settlement immediately. And when you're talking about that, there's really only two things that seem to fit the bill. One is stable coins. So like Tether's USDT, which is pegged on the US dollar, or USDC by Circle. But the other one is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is rearing and ready to go via the Lightning Network. So yeah, this will be interesting to hear more about that. I would go to that session as well, Jared. I would absolutely go to that session. And these data centers as well, they tend to be built in huge warehouses. So I've got to be a little bit empathetic. I wouldn't want one in my backyard either, honestly. I really wouldn't.
Right.
What's interesting to me about Bitcoin is, while you can get some huge centers, a Bitcoin data center in, let's say, a oil field where they're otherwise flaring off gas, but now they're capturing gas locally, running a turbine. They have this amount of electricity to run a container or two full of computers, either for AI or for Bitcoin. In either case, both of those are very small data centers comparatively compared to the Amazon side warehouses, I'm going to say. And then also they're at a place where it's already kind of ugly because all those oil well tops are there. And they're greening up in two ways, as we've talked before, both environmentally. It is good to not flare gas the way we flare gas right now. Maybe only, I've heard 15 to 20% of the flared gases actually get burned in that moment. The rest escape, and they're very much greenhouse gases. But if you run that through a turbine, it's like 80 to 90% efficiency and burn rate. And I think I'm trying to remember, CO2 versus methane is much less caustic to the environment. So, anyways, I'm excited about all that. Yeah, I would go to that one as well. I would love to learn all about it. What seems clear is we can sort of not like this technology. It's here. You're not putting AI back in the bottle. It's the genie. It's not going back in the bottle. So you would do well. At least some of us would do well to pay attention to it, be conversant with it. I'm talking to our sophomore in college engineering student and asking him how much is AI impacting the conversations in the classroom. And I think I maybe said this a few weeks ago, disappointing for me at least. Now, maybe he's still in core classes, not going to get to the advanced classes. Maybe that'll happen starting next year. But he hasn't heard much about it. And I just commended to him, well, I think you, with what little free time you have, should get curious about AI and engineering. Because if you can leave
Right.
with not only a degree, but with some comprehension, some ease of use with these tools, you might be, a high selection compared to others. So you want to be a part of the disruption if you can. Hate to say it that way in some sense, but yeah. So I like
And
that.
so,
That's a whole area. I would love to go listen to that.
yeah, I would assume. I mean, I think the agenda is out. I obviously both of us have been very busy
Yeah.
with Easter and Holy Week, so I haven't had a chance to go through and look at it yet. But there's got to be something there. So I think that a follow up to that would be, I'm curious the level of political discussion. So last year, Vice President Vance was like the opening thing. And so it was a super political, very heavy, hey, I'm going to do this for Bitcoin. He had some interesting offers for like, here's some things I think you should think about as a community. But then I remember too, there was some guy from England who was part of some other political party who was talking about how he was going to do and adopt Bitcoin. In many ways, it felt like hey, every year we're pitched some sort of like nationwide adoption, whether it's here or somewhere else. And so I'm curious, in some ways it kind of has become the narrative trope that never always seems to promise much and never really seems to deliver much, at least in my opinion, that, hey, we're all just ready for, countries to start buying Bitcoin and holding it, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't, even when it happens, it doesn't seem to really do much. And so I'm curious about that. But then second, last year too was very much heavily focused on stable coins and the stablecoin legislation. Again, at the time that was happening in our political system and trying to get things passed, all those sort of things. And so I wonder, this year the theme in discussion is all around the Clarity Act. I think that's the name, and that's sort of the crypto legislation, how it all works in the system, that has been back and forth between banks and the crypto lobbyist people. And so it'll be curious to see how much of that too dominates discussion on, hey, is this going to get passed? Is it not going to get passed? What does that mean for the crypto industry in general? But obviously, of course, Bitcoin, because that's what we're there to talk about. But just very, very curious that in a year of lots of political events, we'll just say it that way, and lots of other political things happening in the world, will it take a non-focused on sort of this kind of political hype, or kind of focus on, hey, well, we're still going to try and do this stuff, all those sort of things? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's great. Or to add to that, it seems the point in our political cycle where people are going to be thinking ahead towards midterms and even another presidential race here over the next two
True.
years, 2.5 years. And much of the early political achievements for Bitcoin were by the president's pen, executive order. Well, boy, executive orders, I just am never, I mean, I'm intrigued by them. I get a little rah-rah about them, but I find them to be, it seems they've grown in popularity, and it's just a sign that our Congress has been neutered, whether they did that to themselves or it's been done to them. It seems that the executive branch has gotten outsized, congressional branch has been downsized, and that's unfortunate. It is a true lesson of civics that it's all meant to be inefficient in one sense, and in another sense, that's exactly what's the matter with the presidential order is it's hyper efficient. The way a king and his kingly rule is hyper efficient. So I'll be watching it from that perspective, very much related to what you said. I wasn't there for Vance. I remember you coming out of it last year being like everybody was that I saw online and talking to you. What a thing. What a thing that a vice president was there. So we will find out. There's a few acts still now as legislation before Congress and hopefully before the president at some point to sign or not sign coming up, but we'll see about those. I will say this, though. It does seem that the markets have matured so much that I think it's going to become increasingly unpopular and therefore untenable for political candidates not to recognize that and kind of ride the wave to some degree. I mean, you're talking BlackRock, the biggest asset holder in the world in terms of assets under management, and all kinds of other institutions are rolling out product after product after product. We're traded on the stock market. A truly MSTR, MicroStrategy's common stock, could well be on the S&P 500 by the time our next president is elected. So for all of these, the market might be the tail that wags the dog, the government in this respect. So we'll see. But I do have concern over politics and Bitcoin in the next few years. I do, precisely because presidential orders are fragile by their very nature, and in a sense, thank God they're fragile. They really thank God that they don't have the impact of law. Thank God. But yeah. Anyways, so we'll see about that.
Well, and I think that's the difference between a king's edict in Bible times versus a president's executive order. They can be unordered, so to say, as the next lady comes in. So I'm curious too, like the way in which I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, so needless to say, politics are going to be a thing. I would think the Clarity Act will be there. We'll talk about AI, I would assume. Is there anything else on your list that you're looking to see or
Yeah,
hoping to see?
I've got two things on my list, and I think the one would be potentially get more airtime at a conference than the other. But they're both around the area of savings and savings technology and savings products. The one really hits families like yours, Jared, and here's what I mean by that. There exist different instruments for saving for your child's college expenses, right? 529 plans in particular. There's is it Coverdell, ESAs. Anyways, there's a few different instruments, but in none of these right now can you really get Bitcoin exposure natively easily. I would love, and I don't honestly understand all who's the governing body in those cases. I've not gone that deep. But for those people who have I believe in a couple things. I do believe in protections by the government for their people, but they should only be so strong. I also believe in self-sovereignty and the ability for people to choose to make wise decisions, even at times make foolish decisions. If somebody has done the homework and has high conviction of the promise of Bitcoin over time, that's exactly the type of person I would love to be able to see have some sort of savings plan for college expenses for the children for the future. where they could really invest in that. I mean, I've run some numbers, Jared, on this, like looking at modest Bitcoin returns compared to historic returns even. And,
Sure.
some of them quick, they're very simple models. Don't think anything like I spent too much time on it. But with some of these even more meager returns, if young parents in year one, which is say right after birth, year two when they're one, year three when they're two, were to put something like $2,000 a year into an account for the child at each of those years, and then it grew for the next 16 to 18 years, in even medium returns in Bitcoin. Boy, Jared, this is amazing savings technology. This would be wonderful. And this could be a chance for a child to go to school and not leave school as a debt slave, So that's one. I suspect though that's you won't find that much. You could find some small talks on that somewhere, some minor breakout. But in terms of, and this goes back to it, we had that one pastor on Twitter try maybe take us to task 6, 8 months ago. I tried engaging him. I know him personally, but he seemed to be suggesting that Bitcoin was selfish and for selfish people. He did not use the word selfish once, so he can reach out to me if I'm not portraying his thoughts well, if he even connects this. But it seemed to be that he was suggesting that. Like, I think of Bitcoin, Jared, and I think of many, many neighbors, and those neighbors include my children for sure. So that's one whole area. The other area that I know you and I are both excited about and watching and interested in, that I think actually could get more airtime, and it still is in the area of savings of a sort, but is Bitcoin and housing, right? Bitcoin and housing. So there's a variety of products starting to come out. They're from smaller firms, I think. There's a few different models. But again, if you have high conviction of the promise of Bitcoin, I think I want to see even more of these products. So I think we could give a thumbnail sketch of a couple of them. The one I'm in, so I'm going to give, I'm putting you on the stump here, Jared, because you didn't know this was coming
Okay.
up. My perspective is I'm already a homeowner and I have some
Sure.
equity in the home. Jared's perspective and Ben's not with us, but they're both hope to be homeowners in the future. Is that correct, Jared?
Yes,
So we've
sir.
got two different groups of people, and I'll share the one. So the one I am interested in is Sovana, Sovana.io, Sovana, I believe is the name of it. And I just became aware of them in the last week or two, probably the week before Holy Week. Heard some of their employees on a podcast. Here's what they do. So let's say I have a house and it's worth 1 million, which I don't. And let's say I have 500,000 of it paid off, which I don't. So 50% of the value of the home I have in equity, even though let's say over the course of the next 20 or 25 years, I'm paying off the final 50%. Mortgage rates depend entirely when you got in on it. I mean, mortgage rates 5, 6 years ago were down to 2.5%. Now they're up considerably higher, 5, 6, 7%. And they're very volatile right now, quite frankly, because of the markets. We know we're getting a new Fed chairman. The idea is that the Fed chairman will come in and cut rates. Now there's this talk of, yeah, but maybe the Fed chairman's going to have to come in and increase rates, so we'll find out. Very volatile. Nobody is able to kind of price ahead of time what's going to happen here in the near future because there's very little confidence as to what will happen. That's what I mean by volatility in this case. But for somebody who is a homeowner and already has some equity in the house, they have a calculator on their website where you type in the value of your home. This is a simple calculator. All this would have to be proved if you were to go through the approval process. But the value of your home, how much you owe on it, and then they have a calculation where, like, of your equity, you're able to borrow up to 70% of that equity, and with them you buy Bitcoin or a Bitcoin product like an ETF. And they hold it for a maximum of 5 years. At the end of 5 years, it will be reconciled, is what I'll use that word. But you also have the choice to close it out, reconcile this 5 year thing anytime prior to then. So right now we're in a bear cycle low, and this conceptual person with $500,000 of equity could borrow up to 70% of that. So I think that's $350,000 if I'm doing the math right off the top of my head. Um, and you could borrow up to $350,000, and what you're doing is having a lien placed against your home so as to pull out money as if it were like a HELOC, right? But instead of actually pulling out that money, that marketing money with Savannah buys Bitcoin at today's spot price. So we'll call it $350,000, and then over the course of 5 years, any increase in the value of that Bitcoin above 350,000. So let's say now the value of that $350,000 grows to 700,000. So it doubled. The increase was 350,000 on the initial 50,000. Anytime you go to reconcile it, Silvana would get half of that increase and you would get half of that increase. So to review, you actually didn't pull any money out of your house. You put a lien against your house, all right, to be able to extract or leverage, in this case, some of the value of your home, right? And then of any increase in that value when you cut ties on this anytime within this 5 years or at the end of 5 years on this, you split the top side with Savannah and their investors, which is a pretty nice trick, particularly if you can catch it at a time when Bitcoin's going to go up. You say, hey, I don't have $350,000 of cash sitting around to buy Bitcoin, but I do have $350,000 of available equity at this point to buy Bitcoin. I maybe should have chosen smaller numbers. There was some decently big numbers, but since in the last 6 months, Bitcoin has dropped off like 50%. I mean, it could be up, it could be 2x back to that same level, like 125, 130K in 6 months just as easily. Jared, it really could. So I find Savannah seems very compelling to me if you have equity in a home. Or you could even think to somebody who is um, like our parents' age and says, my home has been paid off. I don't have much cash coming in, but I really believe in Bitcoin for my children and grandchildren generation, but I don't really have a way to get exposure to it. This is a way for a lot of people to potentially, if they have high enough conviction, to get exposure to Bitcoin. And that really excites me.
So what happens if it goes down?
Yeah, you owe the difference. Yep. Yep.
Woof.
Wolf is right. So
There you go. I just feel like, it sounds so good. I mean, and it is one of those things where like, it's not that it's a too good to be true sort of thing, but it is like hey, there's got to be a catch somewhere, right?
yep,
So I
absolutely.
think and there's other companies too. Horizon, I know, does something not the same, but something similar, trying to tap into the equity of your house. I think we talked last 2 episodes ago about the sort of products that I've been curious about in that time since. Coinbase, I believe, has launched they call it crypto backed or a Bitcoin backed mortgage, where you use Bitcoin to pay for your down payment, and then you basically get like a second loan that way. So it's not a true Bitcoin mortgage, which might be a little bit different than the other products that we've referenced here. But anyway, the thing that I'm also curious about, which I can't believe I haven't thought of this until now, is quantum computing. So I don't know how much you know about this, David. I am very ignorant about it. I mean, I've listened to Preston Pish's quantum computing and Bitcoin video where he had little graphics, and I've listened to Nick Carter talk a little bit about quantum computing, and I don't understand anything how it works, but that it's very powerful, and people are saying eventually, someday, and it depends who you ask if that day is soon or not, that it's going to break the internet, basically. That it will be able to crack, it will be able to unencrypt many of the modern security principles, security software, whatever the right word is, protocols that exist on the internet today. And Bitcoin is included in that. And so in the community, there are lots of hot debates. I remember I went to a talk last year by Hunter Beast was on on the forum talking about quantum computing last year, and that was sort of like the beginning, I would say, of what has really, at least in the Bitcoin world, become somewhat of a hot topic. It seems like people either agree wholeheartedly that we need to solve this right now, or that most of the claims that quantum computing is right around the corner are not true. We'll just say it that way. And so it'll be interesting to see how many things are said about that, what kind of debates are had around those things, and just in general, what people have to say about quantum computing and its sort of risk to Bitcoin. I mean, there's a lot of different proposals out there that I don't necessarily think many of our listeners would probably care about. But basically, the problem or concern is that there are some very old Bitcoin wallets, including Satoshi's original sort of wallet, that if quantum computing, or maybe when quantum computing becomes a thing, that then people could hack those wallets and then do whatever they want with those Bitcoin. So they could send them, they could sell them, they could take control of them. And that some people say that is why the price is where it is today, that the concerns of quantum computing are not being taken seriously enough by the developers, by whoever, fill in the blank you want to put there, and that is scaring people away from investing in Bitcoin because of the sort of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like you've already said, David, over what could be or could happen in the land of quantum computing. So I'm curious to see what that is, or what people talk about there.
I'm mildly curious about that, but not maximally, and simply because of this. My understanding of Bitcoin's encryption, even those original wallets, is it's still magnitudes of order of complexity and security beyond so many products and areas of our life today that also need security. So the
Right.
encryption, SHA-256 encryption, even with some of the original addresses, is still so much more secure than your average bank, right? These are bank accounts that could be drained out, that are insured up to 250,000 FDIC insurance. So in other words, if quantum computing starts to become a thing, and if it leads to sort of bedlam, shenanigans, people are using these for bad ends. And by the way, all technologies, every last one, will be used for maybe the good intention that it was designed for, but also bad intentions. I mean, just play the game of Clue. Every object everybody's murdered with is not inherently evil, from rope to a candlestick to even a revolver. Is it a revolver? I forget, but
Yep.
it's just true. Every technology can be used for good or ill. Deal with it, right? So, yeah, back to it. I just think other areas would fall to those shenanigans well before Bitcoin, and we have a tech savvy group. And the ands just keep going on and on and on to where I'm interested in it. I'm glad that there's some people like Nick Carter and others highly interested in it, paying attention to it. So I don't begrudge them that at all. I'm just not ready to run around as if the sky's falling on this issue. So yeah, that's where I'm at on it. But you're right. That I think you have put your finger on it. That's much more likely to be talked about than saving 529 savings plans for families, and sort of get sort of main stage attention and the like.
That's really all I've got, David. Is there anything else on your list that you're looking to see?
Let's see. Yeah, no, just products. I think the other fun about this show, and I don't know, you've been and I've not, would be to walk the vendor areas. That's where, you've got main stage, big technologies, big movements, right? But back to like the idea of builders, cottage industries around that, I find that really exciting. Um, Between now and then, let's say I make it. How about this? I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks to make my first. My barber uses Square app, Jack Dorsey's Square, which is like I think 4 million or 14 million point of sale terminals around the U.S. They opened them up to Bitcoin payments about a year ago, but the individual vendors had to make some some changes that are initially were kind of in buried menus, have gotten better in past weeks. But my understanding is that as of last week, Bitcoin payments are native on every Square app point of sale terminal. And my Barber's point of sale terminal is an app on his phone connected with an NFC card reader. So I don't know if the app is updated, probably has to be updated, but I'm looking forward between now and then to doing that. And I would gladly at a conference like that hear more about Bitcoin being used in the wild, right? Point of sale, commerce, this type of thing. Back to legislation. One of the areas of conversation there is whether Bitcoin would get what's called, let's see if I can pronounce it correctly, de minimis tax treatment. In other words, they would pick an arbitrary amount. One amount that has been floated around is $600. So any Bitcoin payment in the wild, $600 or less, those Bitcoins would not be susceptible then to capital gains taxes and the like. That would be really, really nice, Jared. That would even open that sort of commerce side of Bitcoin up all the more. And back to the Square app, actually today it happened here locally. We weren't able to go, but our farmers market opened for the first time in the spring. It'll go through next fall. I do know, same thing with my barber, like a lot of those farmers market crew, they use Square app on a phone at the farmers market. So I'm looking forward, conference or not, or at the conference as well, to actually having more conversations with vendors out in the wild where, hey, I see you take Square app. I'm going to pay in Bitcoin. You are? You're the first person who has ever done that for me. Or tell me more. So I think that's an exciting moment also.
Hopefully, I don't know if it's this one or the next one, but I'm the conference person who just kind of walks around and looks at things. And I don't think I say more than 20 words in a time, but I would love to come with you because I guarantee David is going to be up and talking to everybody. And I'll just be the fly on your shoulder who follows you around awkwardly and says, that was really fun to be a part of that conversation. Thanks, David.
I'm trying to think. Oh man, how can I not think of it? Oh, somebody asked me about Bitcoin recently, and my wife was shaking her head. And I don't even know if this person really knew that I knew this much about it. But I always say, I was turning to my wife afterwards and say, they asked. She's like, I know, I know.
It's great. I think I've talked about my little fold Bitcoin miner. I
Yeah.
moved it in my office here at church because it used to sit over here on my desk, and I run it at like 80% fan the whole time because it can go on like a variable setting and go up and down, all those sort of things. And it's just really annoying to hear it go like woo, woo
Yeah.
all day
Yeah.
long. And so I just set it at 80%, but it was getting rather annoying. And so I moved it over by my door. I have a little credenza there, and I put it over there. And I've already gotten like 3 people that asked me like, what is this little thing? I was like, oh, so it's a little Bitcoin miner. And they just kind of look at me like, are you one of those people? And it's like, yeah, yes, I am. If you ever want to talk about it, I'd love to talk to you about this. I always call it a hobby and a passion that I think has real world implications for a better future is how I usually try and frame it for people so that they don't think I'm some like degenerate gambling pastor, man. Like,
You're in
that's
Vegas.
not
Come
quite.
on.
Yeah, that's right. Not quite the image I want for people, but it's been fun just to have it there and have people ask like, "Hey, what is that?" And be able to say, "Well, it's not a full size one, but it's a Bitcoin miner." And they always say, "Oh, have you gotten any Bitcoins yet?" And it's like, I wish that would be nice. All those
Yep.
sort of things.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, we'd love to hear what you thought about this. Love to hear. We'll have to give you a post conference update, whether we get to go in person or not. Whatever happens, we'll let you know how it goes and what we heard or saw that might be beneficial for you to either circle around and go watch, listen to talk like that, or just be curious about what is happening in the Bitcoin world as the biggest gathering of Bitcoiners and I don't know, whoever else comes to those sort of conferences in the world. So we're glad that you've been here this week. As always, right? Our hope is solely on the resurrection of Jesus, like we say every week too, like Paul does, that if Christ has not been raised from the dead, then we are to be pitied amongst most and all people. But yet Jesus has been raised from the dead for you, for the world. It's the best news. It gets me out of bed in the morning. It's why I'm here to do what I do, because Jesus is alive. And, well, there's nothing more important, nothing better than that. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.